Good morning. Happy Tuesday. It is Tuesday, so it's only right we talk Maction. But welcome into the number one Group of Five football podcast of all time. This is the Group of Five guys. We need your help to fight this fight that we are fighting. We need you to follow us on all the social media platforms at Group of Five guys. Go to YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your best podcasts. Subscribe to the channel. Give us a 5-star rating. Leave a review. Leave a comment. Most importantly, tell your family and friends all about us. On this Tuesday, we are on day 2 of 5 straight days of conference previews. And like I said earlier, it's Tuesday. It's only right we talk Maction. You can go back yesterday and check out our Conference USA preview. But today, we're talking Mac. Hope you enjoy the show. Have you had it from somebody born and raised in Lafayette, Louisiana, at a tailgate? Doubt it.
I said Michael Pratt has got to show up and play, and boy did he. 394 yards, 4 touchdowns, 48 rushing yards on the ground, and another touchdown.
Projected getting drafted between the first and third round. Like, that's incredible.
That's
the wide receivers are absolutely stacked for the Group of Five.
Yeah, I really appreciate you do for the Group of Five programs, and I think it's great. I think we should get more of this. But you guys are on the forefront of this, and
so I'm thankful for this. I'm glad that you're talking about the Group of Five because I think they get overlooked.
But it's a ton of fun to watch a guy go to the NFL from a Nevada or a Colorado State or a Middle Tennessee or an App State, and fans follow that kid.
Well, boys, in a couple weeks, we're going to have football on Tuesdays. We are going to have not only Maction, but we're going to have some Conference USA. There's a couple Sun Belt Tuesday games. We're getting close to that time of year when there is football every day of the week, which is, I don't think you can have a better time of the year, especially in an election year. We need more football. We need less politics. But let's get into Maction, man. And, here's how we're going to break this down. If you didn't catch the Conference USA show, we're going to work everything into tiers. So we're going to have our favorites. We're going to have our contenders. We're going to have our sleepers or dark horses. We're all going to pick a player of the year. We're all going to pick a underrated or underappreciated player. We're going to pick the most important conference game, the most important non-conference game, and then we're all picking a champion. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll remember these at the end of the season. We'll see how way off we are or how right we are, which actually we got to go back and look, by the way, at last year's because I don't even remember who I picked. Well, I know who I picked in the MAC. I picked Toledo over Miami, I think.
Yeah, well, none
or I
of
might have
us will
picked Toledo
be
over NIU.
probably as accurate as our boy Alex Shear was last year when he came on our show and pretty much called his shots, Browse. That was impressive.
Yeah, we were close, though. Look, Toledo, they were the favorite. They were the odds-on favorite last year. But that's going to be, Alex is going to be our guest here, joining us in a second. Alex Shear of the Mac Sports Connection podcast. He's dialed in on the Mac now. You want stats, you want history, you want results, records. He knows it all. He's got most of it in his head. And like Jeff said, he correctly picked Miami to beat Toledo in the MAC championship. And when we were up in Oxford, we did a live show. He came on and he correctly picked Toledo to beat Miami in the regular season at that game. And all three of us, I think, picked Miami to win that game. Did we not?
I know.
Yeah,
I did.
think so.
Yeah.
Because I think I even made the comment, I was like, this isn't good, but we're all three picking them, which means they're probably
that's
going
right.
to lose.
That's exactly right, that's something we need to keep track of as we keep going along through these preview shows. If we're all picking the same teams, if you're a betting person, I would run straight to the sports book and bet something else. But let's bring on Alex Shear of the Mac Sports Connection. Joining us now is our resident Macspert, as we call him, our Mac expert, Alex Shear. Alex, it's a pleasure as always. This is like, I don't know, third or fourth time we've gotten together on something, but thanks for coming on and hanging out with us on this Tuesday morning.
Absolutely. No, I'm happy to be here, guys. Appreciate all you guys continue to do for the group of five and continue to do even for the MAC. It's doesn't go unnoticed. And I'm appreciative because I do a lot of my research and I'll listen to you guys and be like, oh, hey, they bring up a good point. And so I'll use your information alongside mine. And just as always, a pleasure to be here.
Well, as you said before you came on here off the air, you correctly picked the MAC champion a year ago, and none of us did. Did we? We must have all had Toledo last year.
I think you guys all had Toledo. I think maybe one of you picked Northern Illinois as like to come in and take it. But not only did I do that, I said Toledo was going to win the regular season matchup, and then Miami was going to beat them in the championship. So
man, you did, and that was live. Now that was impressive because that was live in Oxford when you had that.
Sure was.
Had that prediction too.
Yeah. That was which was insane. That was such a great game down there in Oxford, getting to hang out with you guys, and man, just Oxford's a cool town.
It's big time. Well, before we get into predictions and the way we're going to do this is some different tiers. I'll just in general, right? And you know this as you've been covering the MAC. The MAC is just disrespected completely, not only by the national media but also by Group of Five fans, right? The Sun Belt, the American, the Mountain West. Hell, even Conference USA thinks that the MAC is just, a bottom feeder. But in your opinion, how good can this conference be? And then without saying who your winner is, what's the likelihood that the MAC sends somebody to the CFP?
So I think what people don't realize is you see teams like Akron last year who finished 11th in the conference, took Indiana to 4 overtimes. A Power 5 school who really shouldn't be a Power 5 school, but that's another discussion for another time. But you saw a really lowly Akron do that. You see Kent State when they're on, they play really good football. They score 50 points a game. This is a league that I think the biggest issue is defense comes at a premium. It's not the emphasis of this league. It's all offense, high-powered, high-octane offense. And I think that's where the disrespect comes because once you slow down that offense, the defense can't keep up with the opposing offense. And I think that's really has always been the issue. However, this league has the potential to be so good. Toledo just signed this past December the highest-rated recruiting class in MAC history. They're on pace to beat that again this year. They're rated as high as number 16 in the country. In early projections, they've already got a couple 4 stars. So this is a league who right now kind of leans on Toledo a little bit in football. Toledo kind of being that program that everybody talks about every year. But this is a really good league. You've got great schools like Miami, who's been playing really good football. Toledo plays really good football. Bowling Green, they're on a resurgence. Western Michigan, watch out for them. I mean, this is a league with a lot of great players, a lot of great people. Eastern Michigan, Chris Creighton, he's done a phenomenal job turning that into a program that is competitive. I mean, we all know Eastern Michigan won in 11 years with regularity. And now we're starting to see that come. They're a bowl team. They're consistently competing. I get the hate from Conference USA. I get the hate from Mountain. I do. The MAC has sent 2 Group of 5 representatives to the bowl games, and they've not performed. Northern Illinois lost the Orange Bowl against Florida State, who won the national championship the next year. Western Michigan lost a 1-score game to Wisconsin in the Cotton Bowl back in 2017. So the MAC hasn't performed well on the national stage. And the teams that you expect to perform well aren't doing it. So I think right now the MAC's just in a bit of a lull, but it doesn't mean they can't be the best Group of 5 conference in the country.
Yeah, you brought up a couple of things. I think number one, there's some really big time coaches in the MAC. And then I did want to touch on, I know Jeff will like this. You brought up Eastern Michigan. You're starting to see them get a little better. And then, weirdly enough, all of a sudden their most famous alumni brings a bunch of money back home.
Yeah.
And those are the kind of things that are going to take a place like Eastern Michigan and make them right up there with Toledo and Miami, where every year in the MAC, they're the favorite or one of the favorites. But, I mean, I agree with a lot of things you said. Well, let's get into this. So just to give you a rundown. So what we're going to do, we've got this thing broken down in tiers.
Okay.
Real quick, we'll do favorites, we'll do contenders, we'll do a sleeper or two if you got one. I'm going to make you pick a player of the year. I'm going to make you pick an underrated or underappreciated player or coach or anything. And then I'm going to make you pick a champion. So
Man, you're trying to get me to go back to back on this. That's tough, man.
I think you're capable. I think you're more than capable. Well, so give me your favorite, right? And there could be more than one. Who's the obvious? You know, if you pick them or if they win it, everybody's picking them.
I mean, if you look on paper, Toledo or Miami have to be the kind of the prohibitive interchangeable 1 and 2. I think Miami with a slightly heavier tilt. They return one of the best defenses in the MAC. They get their starting quarterback Brett Gabbert back. The wide receivers are a bit of an unknown, but I mean, this is not a team that anybody should be surprised if they win. Toledo, they're going to be going through some growing pains, but they're going to be in this thing for a while. And I expect, I know I have my hot takes I posted, so I'm contradicting myself here, but you can expect Toledo will be competing for MAC championship up until the end of the season. Like this, that's just who Jason Candle is as a coach and what he does with this Toledo team.
I got to jump in here real quick. What's your thoughts on Tucker Gleason? Obviously, Toledo lost a lot in the portal last year. Give me some info on Tucker Gleason. We've seen him in limited time, but can he make a big jump and really make it his team?
Well, I'll tell you this. So the first time we saw Tucker Gleason really get starting action was against Bowling Green 2 years ago. Toledo lost that game. It was 42-35. Tucker Gleason had 4 touchdowns and like 400 yards. That was his first starting action in a rivalry game in the snow at home. He's a kid who can sling the rock, and he's also tough as nails. He can run too. That's the other thing a lot of people look at. I mean, he's slow. He's not gonna go win a gold medal for Team USA in track, but he can bulldoze people. He is tough as nails. He actually broke his hand in that game and kept playing. Wow. Came out, kept slinging the rock. And I was there for that. And I just to watch what this kid was doing. And everybody talks about, oh, well, Toledo lost. They shouldn't have lost, whatever. You were without DeQuan Finn. This was a tough game to play. It's a rivalry game. It's always going to be intense. I think we can see that Tucker Gleason this year. But I think for me, I'm concerned about the offensive line for Toledo. The Tucker Gleason we saw at the bowl game, who didn't impress me, the Arizona Bowl this year. That's the one I'm a little bit more concerned that we might see if you're a Toledo fan, just because now you're replacing 5 starters on the offensive line. Toledo usually does a nice job kind of replacing guys. They very rarely have to replace all 5. That's where my concern is.
So outside of Miami and Toledo, then who's somebody or multiple teams that can contend that might find themselves in that mix? Because remember now, no divisions this year. Correct. So so it could be any 2 teams.
Mm-hmm. It's and I kind of like the no division thing, and I'll get to my pick here in a second. I think the no division thing is a good move for the Mid-American Conference. I think a couple years ago we should have seen, if we did the no division, we should have seen Ohio versus Bowling Green in the MAC championship. We saw Ohio versus Toledo. I think eliminating divisions, you're going to get the best 2 teams, and I think it gives the MAC, going back to your point earlier, it gives the MAC the best chance to find who the best team is to get them to the playoffs. This isn't about, oh, well, Toledo beat up on 6-6 Akron. No, now it's 11-1 Miami taking on 10-2 Bowling Green. That's already a much better looking game on paper than a 7-5 Toledo, 10-2 Miami. So just optics, I think that was the right move for the conference. But going down my list, I think you've got Bowling Green. You've got this is going to shock you. Ohio, Parker Navarro, if he gets rolling, I think he's a good quarterback. He's got a bowl win under his belt as well. So I think that's a kid who can play. So Ohio, Bowling Green. And then I also really think Western Michigan could come out of nowhere and be competitive late in the season.
I like that. So now is Western Michigan your sleeper, or do you have somebody else coming up in that dark horse category?
Give me my sleeper of Northern Illinois.
No, Rocky
Go Huskies.
Lombardi, he's gone. He was there for like 12 years, but he's gone now.
Rocky Lombardi was there for 12 years, played 12 games each year. Like it was impressive. He's played more games in college than most NFL quarterbacks play in the league. But I think Ethan Hampton is going to rely on Ontario Brown a lot. I think this Northern Illinois defense is going to be pretty solid. I don't think that they're going to be world beaters, but they haven't needed to be world beaters. They were knocking off Boston College. They were knocking off Georgia Tech. These are guys who can come out. They play really well as a unit, and I think that's the thing. A lot of times, these defenses and these offenses, it becomes a one-man show. Coach Hammock doesn't do that. We're going to play complementary football. We're going to show our strengths. We're going to try to hide our weaknesses a little bit. But this is a team and a defense that I think can get it done. They are my sleeper this year. So if they're in the MAC championship, call it as the sleeper, but I think that they're going to be a much better team than what they're being projected to be.
Have they officially named Ethan Hampton the starter?
I haven't
know
seen
there was
anything
a bit of a battle,
yet.
but I know he's the prohibitive favorite. But
yeah, he's the prohibitive favorite. I haven't seen anything official yet. I did see, however, Devin Cargman is taking over starting duties over at Kent State, taking over the top spot for Tommy Ulatowski. So he won the job and will be starting against Pitt here in week 1. So just a little something for you guys to be aware of.
Interesting.
Can Kent State, what do they have to do to recover from just last year? They just got crushed in the portal. They lost everything. What do they need to do to rebuild a little bit?
So I talked to Kenny Burns at Mac Media Day this year, and we had a great conversation. The biggest thing for him was when he came in, they lost their entire offense to the portal graduation, whatever it is. And those guys are all playing in the AFL, CFL. So, I mean, they're all out playing good football. But it's really hard to be a competitive football team when you have to replace 11 starters on one side of the ball. I don't care how good your defense is. You could have the best defense in the country. You're going to lose 7 games. Like, it's just going to happen. They ended up going 1-11 a year ago. I think, and Kenny Burns said this so well, last year when he came in, he had to just find bodies to put in there. Like who's willing to come to Kent State. Now he's recruiting and say, this is where we have a deficit. This is where we need to fill things. Let's get guys to fill these. We know we have skill positions. We know we've got guys like Gavin Garcia. We know we've got Krishawn McCray. Like, I mean, we've got great players who can go out and do great things. Let's complement them. Let's protect our quarterback. Let's get an extra linebacker who maybe fills a gap that we need, whatever it may be. Now I think you're going to see Kenny Burns. He's doing this Kent Grit thing. He had a hoodie that he wore all off season, 1-11, number 133, just really pounding it in their heads. Like, guys, we're better than this. We are not a 1-11 team. And I think you're going to see that demonstrated. You've got Mike Glass, the kicker. He's going to come out and be excellent. He could be Kent State's all-time leading scorer by the end of the season. This is a football team that I think is going to be not a MAC contender, so please don't hear that. But I think they're going to be much better than 1-11, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them steal a couple MAC wins. They've got a gauntlet in the non-con, but don't be surprised to see them steal a couple MAC wins.
I like that. Now, real quick, I'm going to ask you about a couple players. Player of the year in the MAC. Who you got?
Depends on who's healthy. I guess that's really my big one. And I think a year ago, it was easy to say DeQuan Finn. I mean, him and Penny Boone were just unbelievable. I think if you look at a guy like Jalen Buckley, watch out. Western Michigan running back. I know I mentioned them kind of as one of my possible contenders. Jalen Buckley, freshman running back of the year, freshman of the year last year. I think he is absolutely incredible, severely underrated. Western Michigan's going to be better, and it's going to be in part because of him.
Jalen Buckley, walk-on as well, not just a freshman, walk-on freshman, rushed for over 1,000 yards a year ago.
He's such a stellar player, and I fully expect that Western Michigan will really go as far as he can carry them on the offensive side of the ball.
What you got, Jeff?
No, I mean, I was just going to chime in that I love that kid. And I watched a ton of film on him over the weekend, and his vision is incredible. I mean, he doesn't have, he's not a 4.3, 4, 4.4 guy, but got plenty enough top end speed to run away from people, and I was just so impressed with his vision, man. He's so patient. He just finds the hole and hits it going 100 miles an hour, and I like him.
Yeah. And he's hard to tackle too. That's the
is.
other thing. Like you have to get both hands on him to bring him down.
I'll tell you what I'm not liking is we just started the show and there's a lot of positive talk on Western Michigan. And I thought I was going to be alone in that.
No.
But, hey, that's it. I'll take it, though. What about somebody, and Jalen Buckley's probably one. What about somebody that's underrated that nobody's talking about going into the year?
CJ Nunley, defensive lineman out of Akron. Akron is going to have a really good defense, and I've got my notes right here. Last year, they ranked number 32 in yards allowed. Unfortunately, they gave up a lot of points. They ranked number 81 in the country a year ago. But 3 starters are back on the defensive line. It's going to be anchored by CJ Nunley, and I think this is a big year for him. Now, in fairness, 2 of the top 5 returning tacklers from a year ago both play for Miami, Ty Wise, Matt Salopek. But CJ Nunley is going to be such an underrated player. I think people who know the MAC, who know the league, know what kind of a player he is. He'll be a senior this year. I think this is a really big year for him and a big year for the Akron team as a whole. The last 2 years, they've lost 5 games by a score. This is that year they step forward, and he's going to be anchoring that defense, and he's going to be a big reason. And I think people need to be talking about him more.
Good pick. Well, before we let you go, championship game, who's in it? Who wins it? And I'm going to throw a wrinkle at you. What's their record? And do they have at least an argument to be in the CFP?
So I'll just give you my championship teams first. Miami versus Ohio. And Ohio's picked 5th to start the season in the conference. I have Miami going at worst 11-1, beating Notre Dame, but dropping it to Cincinnati.
Ooh.
Wow.
I could see that,
Miami,
though. That's a very realistic thing that could happen.
Exactly. Like, now Miami's going to have an incredible defense. They're going to have a pretty good offense. You go into South Bend, you win in South Bend, but then there's that hangover. Then you've got Cincinnati at home, who, now that rivalry's over, tensions are high. Tensions are really high. You tweet the word Cincinnati out on Twitter right now, and you've got, 15,000 people screaming at you. I witnessed this myself. And so I think Miami could go 11-1 with a win over Notre Dame in South Bend. Notre Dame plays 2 MAC teams this year, Northern Illinois and Miami. You go 1-1 against the MAC. Miami plays in the MAC championship. They play Ohio. Ohio is going to be 9-3. 9-3. Miami wins it, and there is absolutely a case that Miami deserves a shot in the college football playoffs. You beat a ranked Notre Dame on the road. Sure, you lose a close rivalry game at home. You still have a ranked win over a really good Notre Dame team. I think there's absolutely worthy of being in the conversation.
And they'll have a win over Northwestern if they do.
They will, yeah, because that means they'll be 2-1 against the Power 5.
Yep. And I think that Northwestern one is going to – the reason I don't talk about that one as much, Northwestern went through a lot of stuff the last couple of years, getting kind of things figured out. And I don't think that Northwestern has a bad program. I think that there's a lot of things that they're kind of working through. It's this stadium. This stadium, where it's at, and I was talking to some Akron fans who went up there for the NCAA soccer tournament. This stadium is unfortunately the great equalizer. The winds off of the lake are not friendly. The stadium holds less than 20,000 people. I think it holds about 14,000 people. This is going, if you're Miami, this is going to feel like, yeah, Northwestern brought a lot of people to Oxford, but the wind and the weather are going to be huge factors. Miami stole a win a couple years ago up there. I could see them doing it again this year with a better team.
Yeah, that stadium's ridiculous, and all 20,000 are in the one end zone, aren't they? I mean, it's like
all on one corner or something. It's insane.
Yeah, very interesting. Well, Alex, we appreciate you as always. Before you go, tell everybody where they can find you on socials and where they can listen to your podcast.
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys. Again, thank you guys for all you do. It's truly one of the best out there. Not just in Group of Five, but in all of college football. I think you guys have put so much love, time, energy into all you do, and it does not go unnoticed. And you guys always know I'm in that corner. But everybody, you can find me on Twitter over at the MSC Podcast. In fact, that's actually all my handles: TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. I'm trying to be young and hip like all the other kids with their TikTok. I'm not as good as it as these 12-year-old Martin Scorsese's, but here we are. And but no, you guys can also listen to me really anywhere: YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Radio Public. Wherever podcasts are. It's just the Max Sports Connection podcast.
Love it, man. Thank you as always. We may or may not get up to MAC country, the MAC or the MAC conference, whichever one you hate the most.
It is the MAC, sir.
Yeah, if we get up there, we'll
have you canceled for that.
Yeah, a lot of things get me canceled real quick. But Alex, we appreciate you so much, dude. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.
I'll tell you what, man, as he was going along, I was feeling better and better about myself for some of the things I'm about to say here. I think he confirmed a lot of
I feel great. I feel great about my sleepers, contenders.
Now the question, Tip, is if the three of us all pick the same teams, that's a bad sign. But if the three of us and Alex, that's kind of the differentiator there. I think if he picks it, we got a chance.
I agree. Yeah, you just saw who Alex picked as his champion. So stay tuned and hear who we have winning it all. We'll see if we compare to Alex or not.
I don't think we'll all have the same teams though. I think we'll be relatively in the same ballpark on certain points, but no, I think we're gonna have different representatives in the championship game.
Now, Jeff, did Alex say anything that surprised you or that that registered with you at all?
Yeah, he's a little higher on the Ohio Bobcats than I am. I don't see how you get, replace all the production, they've had. Most teams in the MAC honestly got crushed in the portal. There's a couple that were pretty safe. And to me, those are the top teams that are going to be going into the season. But he seemed to feel good about Ohio. So that was a little I didn't see that one coming.
No, I agree with that. He was, and I like that he was. Maybe this is a little MAC bias that he's got, and he made it clear he's not picking Akron or Kent State to win the thing, but he does think both of them are going to improve quite a bit. Which Akron, we've been saying for a couple years now. Akron's one of those teams that if they're able to recruit locally and start winning a couple of games, that's a place that could build quickly. If they could get the local community behind them, if they could start getting some local high school kids, they could do a nice job up there. But we'll see what they do. So let's just get right into it then. Favorites. I mean, Tip, I know you have the odds in front of you, but I think the prohibitive favorite in this conference is Miami. I mean, I think they are. I think they're going to be the popular pick. Won it last year, like Jeff said. Everybody in the MAC seemed to get crushed by the portal. Miami seems like their leadership, their veteran guys, their core of guys got together, and it's I wonder if they had a players only meeting or something postseason. Said, hey, let's run this thing back one more time. To keep guys like Matt Salopek, to keep Ty Wise, Brett Gabbert to come back. I mean, your core guys are back. I think they're the big time favorite.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I mean, just all the production that they're returning. Now, they lost Rashad Amos. He went to Ole Miss. Gage Larvadane, he's gone. He transferred as well. But outside of those two guys, they pretty much are getting all their production back. And then outside on the receiver position, Andre Johnson, he's a transfer from Arizona State, 6'4", 215 pounds. I think he can be a big threat on this offense for Gabbert. He's a big target in the MAC, especially with how teams want to run the ball. Miami's going to want to pound the rock. you're going to get those extra guys in the box. So that's where you get your matchups one-on-one on the outside. You get cover 1 or even cover 0 at times. That's where you can take advantage of a 6'4" guy who's long, can go up and get that 50-50 jump ball. And he's a guy that I'm looking at that I think it didn't have a ton of production at Arizona State, but he just kind of fits what I think they're going to want to do at Miami. So,
and they get the tight end back from injury from a year ago, Jack Calderon.
yeah.
So that tight end, we talk about it with every team, right? When you don't necessarily have the go up and get a guy or the easy number 1 target at receiver, what an outlet to have a big time tight end.
Yeah.
So I think they've got that, and I think once again, the key for Miami's success, which it has been, is Brett Gabbert remaining healthy. We saw in person, how bad that offense was when he went down. Now, last year it was a bit of a freak injury. It was a leg. That's not an injury of a guy where you say, oh, he's injury prone or, oh, he's soft. Any of that. That was a freak injury. Guy broke his leg trying to get into the end zone on the goal line.
Yeah, it was like a QB sneak or something too. It was real weird.
Yeah, but I got a stat for you, though. Speaking of quarterbacks at Miami, I'm going to give credit to Phil Steele, which probably a lot of this information is coming from Phil Steele doing the legwork on this. But Chuck Martin, the head coach of Miami, is 40-11 over the last 5 years when the starting quarterback plays the whole game.
Wow.
So which is Brett Gabbert for 3 of those years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what it all comes down to. Their defense, we know, is going to be very, very good. But it all comes down to, can Gabbert stay healthy? And they've got a schedule that sets up, in my opinion, I think pretty nicely. Alex thinks they're going to go down to South Bend and beat Notre Dame. I think all they got to do is go 2-1 in that 3-game stretch. Yeah. Northwestern, Cincinnati, Notre Dame. I think they'll be favored against Cincinnati. Northwestern, I think, will probably be pretty even. They'll be big-time underdogs at Notre Dame. But I think you go 2-1. If you lose to Notre Dame, you keep it close. If, big if, you win all your games in the MAC, you're talking about an 11-1 team with at least 2 Power 5 wins.
Yeah, and you
got an argument.
And you get Toledo relatively early. It is on the road. But that's going to be a big matchup. You get that week 5. Yeah. But then the rest of your slate is very manageable. You can I think easily run the table the rest of the way. And we talk about on their defense is going to be great, right? Salopek and Wise, those are the 2 names we always talk about. But I think Brian Ugwu is a defensive end who had 68 tackles and 8 sacks last year. I think he's going to be the key to this defense, especially going up against quarterbacks that can throw. If he can get pressure off the edge, affect the quarterback's rhythm, I think he could be a double-digit sack leader, possibly contending for leading the country in sacks this year.
Well, and Tip, I think in one of our last couple episodes, you talked about Miami on defense being good at every level. You talked about having somebody in the middle that was good at every level, and now you also talk about a guy that's coming off the edge. If you're good in the middle, guy off the edge can pin his ears back just a little bit more than he could if they weren't good in the middle.
100%, and putting pressure on the quarterback, like Murph mentioned, that's going to make your secondary that much better. Right. And force those turnovers. And that's what makes this defense so good. They're returning 6 starters from last season. And this team last year on defense allowed about 11 points per game against MAC opponents. So I see a lot of the same thing happening for them this year. And you go back to that, college football playoff conversation that Alex mentioned. If you have a 1-loss Miami team, it just depends on, the resume of the other group of 5 teams at that point. But we'll just use an example of Liberty because, they're probably right now the favorite to be the group of 5 representative in the college football playoff. But if you have a 1-loss Miami team and their 1 loss is against Cincinnati or Notre Dame, and then you have a 1-loss Liberty team that lost to App State, I feel like you would have to, if you're just comparing those 2 teams, I feel like you would have to put Miami in the college football playoff just based on the quality wins. The strength of schedule is, I don't have that in front of me, but I'm going to assume that Miami's strength of schedule is stronger than Liberty's. And if Liberty does go undefeated, I still think a one-loss Miami team should be considered. It'd be tougher in that situation because you have an undefeated Liberty team at that point with a win at App State. But I still think Miami should be in the conversation.
Yeah, and I remember saying last year when Toledo was at that point that Toledo should have been in the conversation with a one score loss to Illinois, I believe it was in week 1. Toledo was sitting there at 11-1, and they weren't even being
mentioned. Yeah,
I mean, nobody even knew. I don't think anybody even knew they were 11-1 at that point. But okay, so Miami's the favorite. Do you guys have anybody else in that favorite category, or did you bump down to contenders?
No, I mean I had Toledo in there. I kind of did at least 2 favorites for every conference, and I just think that Toledo, it's hard to count them out. Jason Candle's done an incredible job. It's his 9th year there, and so far he's been able to be in that conversation pretty much year in and year out. I know Taquan Finn left for Baylor, but as Alex alluded to, Tucker Gleason has all the tools. Now he's got to be that player week in and week out for this team. If he can do that and they can kind of figure out a group on that offensive line that works, I mean, they have the athletic ability, at the running back spot with Jacquez Stewart, on the outside with Jerwan Newton. They have a lot of talent at the receiver position, also with Larry Stevens, their tight end Anthony Torres. So I think that the quarterback and their offensive line are the 2 biggest question marks. But I'm not going to put it past Jason Campbell to not be able to figure that out, if that makes sense. Because their defense, they're only returning 4 starters, but you got guys like Max and Hook coming back. So I think Toledo deserves to be in the favorite conversation, at least based off their pedigree.
That's where I had them too. And Alex mentioned how good their recruiting has been recently. There's going to be guys that we don't know about that are going to shine for Toledo. And then we'll be talking about them in the middle of the season. And yes, they lost a lot of starters from last year, but if these guys can fill those holes and those voids for this team, and if it can work, I mean, we've seen it work before with other teams. If we see that happen, then you're going to see Toledo there in contention for the MAC.
Well, and that's exactly what I had in my notes. They're always the most talented team, right? I mean, they always got the guys, they always got the recruits, they always got all that. I look at they're at Western Kentucky week 4, I think it's a measuring stick game for both conferences. And not only is it important for Toledo and Western Kentucky, that's an important game for the Liberties of the world, for the Miamis of the world, because those are 2 of if Miami and Liberty are the favorites, Toledo and Western are next. And that's kind of a conference supremacy matchup, in my opinion. And it's going to tell a lot about both of them, and it's going to tell a lot about both conferences. And that's one of those that's a really good, really, really underrated non-conference game. And they go to Mississippi State week 3, which, Mississippi State ain't world beaters by any means. So,
well, that's what I was going to say, Sprouse, is you got the Mississippi State game the week before. That's a very winnable game if Tucker Gleason can figure it out. But you got a nice, 2-week kind of, warm up, I would say, with Duquesne and UMass. Now, UMass has been better, but that's a game Toledo should win, in my opinion. So you can go into Mississippi State 2-0. You get 2 nice home games. Get Gleason in there. Get the O line. Maybe some kinks worked out. Figure out what groups work. Shoot, if they beat Mississippi State, and Alex is pretty confident that Miami of Ohio is going to beat Notre Dame. I mean,
he's real confident, wasn't he?
You're talking. That's 2 big time wins over Power 5 programs within the first. I mean, what did he say? He said something like 7. Group of 5 over Power.
Well,
was it Matt?
Well,
was
last
it
year
Matt specific?
last year was the first year in a long time that somebody from the MAC didn't beat somebody from the Big Ten alone. And hell, was it last year? It was 2 years ago. Kent State took Georgia down to the wire, if you remember that. So, again, all the narratives that are out there, when you're looking at these middle of the road Power 5 teams, and Notre Dame, nobody thinks is middle of the road. and the top of the MAC can go beat those teams. I mean, we've seen it before. I think, and by the way, I think Tucker Gleason's going to be just fine.
Yeah,
I think
too.
he probably throws it a little bit better than DeQuan Finn.
I agree.
So
I think he's got a little
Toledo's
more.
going to be just.
I think he's got a little more grit to him. He's got a little, and it's a different style of swagger, but he's a little more gritty and just I don't know. We saw him warming up against Miami, and I was like, who is this kid? He's got the tats everywhere.
Yeah.
I was like,
yeah,
he was just kind of doing his own thing, vibing out. I was like, I kind of like this kid.
yeah, he's kind of got a little. I hate to use guys like Johnny Manziel or what was the kid from Ole Miss from back in the day. I can't even remember. I can't remember who it was, but
he reminded me of Wild Thing and from Major League.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Ricky Vaughn.
Just kind of walking around, bebopping around, doing his own thing. I was like, I can get down with this kid.
You like this kid. Yeah. All right. So you got Miami and Toledo are the two favorites. Then are we taking it down to contenders? See, I think that I'm not saying that Miami is that much better than Toledo, but I had Miami by themselves as a favorite. And then I moved down and went Toledo as a contender. I had NIU right there as a contender. And I actually think NIU offensively is going to be really good. I think you get Trayvon Rudolph, you get Ontario Brown, you get Grayson Barnes, the tight end who we just talked about with our best tight ends last week. And then there's a little bit of a quarterback battle, but Ethan Hampton or Jalen Macon is a guy that is big. He's your it's like, we talk about all these quarterbacks. Jalen Macon is the guy that you kind of want to win. But if he doesn't, then Ethan Hampton will be just fine. But you want Jalen Macon. He's 6'5", 230.
Yeah.
Big arm, dual threat. That's the guy you want. But anyway, I think with Brown, Rudolph, and Barnes, that offense has got a little three-headed monster now. And that's something that NIU, with Rudolph being hurt and quarterbacks being hurt and all this uncertainty, have kind of been missing a little bit of that. But if you can get the three of them and you get some solid quarterback play, they got the best O-line in the conference. They almost always do, it seems like. And that is their identity. Okay, so don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they're going to be throwing it all over the place, but I think this offense is going to put up some big-time numbers.
It's going to come down to the quarterback play, right? I mean, and fun fact about Jalen Macon, he played high school at Hillsborough High School in Nashville. I saw that when I was looking stuff up. But yeah, and then you look at the defensive side of the ball. They're returning 8 starters. This is a team that gave up around 20 points per game against MAC opponents. So, I mean, all the pieces are there. They have the skilled players on offense. They have a majority of the defense coming back. It's going to come down to the quarterback play. And if that can mesh and work out with those skilled players and just the general, just run the offense, limit the number of turnovers, score enough points, your defense is going to keep you in every single game, most of the games. It's lining up really good for NIU this year. And I know they've had, a few disappointing seasons, but if everybody can stay healthy and the quarterback play, whoever it is, works well with these skill players, it can work, and NIU can have a great year this year.
Tip, you hit it on the head, and that's what was going to be my point. I think this team is going to live or die by the quarterback position, and I think they know what they're going to get with Ethan Hampton. And in the little picture I took of my new pod the other day, I had Arkansas Pine Bluff on my computer. I was watching film on him. Kid is a dynamic player. Now, he made some young mistakes, and he needs to improve on his throwing as far as his consistency and accuracy. But I mean, I think that's the guy that kid has the most upside out of the entire room. Now, can he figure it out? I don't know. We'll see. Because him and the other guy at Arkansas Pine Bluff were splitting time last year. So it's going to be interesting to see. But if he can figure it out, NIU might be scary.
If Ethan Hampton wins the job, maybe you get in Jalen Macon in there on some, inside the 5-yard line plays. That would be, have a couple of packages and plays in the offense for him. That'd be fun to watch.
Couple jump passes, QB draw type plays. Well, who else did you guys have in that as contenders?
I had Bowling Green. I think Bowling Green this is going to be one of Loeffler's most talented teams that he's had. And again, I feel like the same theme for a lot of these MAC teams is it's going to come down to the quarterback position, as it should. It's the most important position on the field.
Careful, but it's been that way. It's been that way in the MAC, though.
Yeah.
It's been the health. When we talked last year, we talked about Gabbert, we talked about Finn, we talked about
Rourke.
Lombardi. It was all about health. This year, it's more so who wins the job or who plays well. Go ahead. Sorry, you really threw me off with that idiotic comment.
No, we all know
For Bowling Green, it comes down to that offensive line you talked about last week.
No, I think Connor Bazelak, he's got another year in the system. He's got to cut down on the interceptions. He's got to get his completion percentage higher. It was at 61% last year. But you look at their running back room. Terrion Stewart returns. He had almost 800 yards last year with eight touchdowns. But then you look at their receivers and tight ends, right? You got Harold Fannin Jr., who's an absolute stud. That's going to be your security blanket. When in doubt, throw it to that guy, right? But then you get a couple transfers. You get RJ Garcia out of Kansas State. I was watching film on this kid, and he didn't have a ton of stats at Kansas State, but the ones he did, he had a couple games where he just had phenomenal games. Nice target, strong hands, it's fast. He can go get the ball. And then you get Malcolm Johnson out of Auburn. So you get two transfers coming in to kind of help out the receiver room because they were kind of thin there. But if Bazelak can figure it out, you got a great running back. I think your O-line will be fine. And then you got your tight end and your receivers. I don't know why Bowling Green can't be in the talks of making that championship game.
Well, Jeff, to be honest with you, outside of maybe Miami, I think Bazelak is maybe the most certain thing at quarterback in the MAC. I mean, you know, you never know. You never know. You could have a guy that looks like a Hall of Famer, and then next year, I mean, Russell Wilson, right? You never know what could happen with these guys with the mental state, with their weapons, with everything. But I think he's not in any kind of a quarterback battle.
No, he's not. He was inconsistent last year. There were times where he looked really good, and there's other times I was like, this guy's the starter. So, and it's just another year in the system. You get your guys. You've had an all-off season. I think he'll be improved, and then I think that defense is one of the top in the MAC last year. And if you look at their schedule, that Toledo game we talked about, that's the first time it's been on a Saturday in a long time. I think that's a huge rivalry game. And then you finish the season at home with Miami. So the way their schedule kind of sets up, and they got a pretty tough stretch in the beginning with Penn State and Texas A&M. So you hope you stay healthy through that stretch. But, I mean, I like their schedule as well.
What Tip, who else did you have as a contender, or did we hit them all?
Hit all mine. I had NIU and Bowling Green as contenders.
Jeff, did you have anybody else?
Nope, those are the two contenders I had as well.
So let's talk sleepers. And last year we called it a dark horse, but I think that we had a lot of confusion on what a true dark horse was. So I thought if we switch the wording around to sleepers, it might be a little more clear. Alex hit this one. He hit everything.
Stole our thunder, man.
Western Michigan, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Western Michigan, and all I really wanted to talk about, and he hit it already. Jalen Buckley, walk-on freshman running back, rushed for over 1,000 yards. Like, I don't know if he was a preferred walk-on and went through camp, but nowadays, right, freshmen are enrolling in January is about standard, and worst case scenario, they're enrolling in the summertime. To have a true walk-on freshman, I mean, there's a chance that guy didn't show up until the first day of camp. Probably the equipment manager gave him a number that was shared with somebody else. He was probably sharing a locker number 126 with another walk-on with a kicker or something like that. And guy just comes in and probably was running scout team through camp. And then they were like, well, now wait a minute, we got something special here. And I mean, I think Western Michigan's got a chance. Now the problem, and this is every conference really and this is Power 5, Group of 5. There's always those two or three teams at the top that just seem so far out of reach. And it's kind of what I think we have here with Western Michigan. I just don't think they can quite get there to the Toledos, the Miamis, and even really the NIUs at this point.
The biggest positive they have for this season, and we talked about it with Alex, they don't have to play Toledo or Miami this year or Ohio. So just that alone, you can have those other teams beat up on each other, and then all of a sudden you see Western Michigan up there as one of the top 2 teams towards the end of the year. But going back to Jalen Buckley, you're going to have your receivers and tight ends, your guys on the outside step up, because these defenses on these other teams, they are obviously watching the film from last year on Jalen Buckley, and they're going to be trying to stop him. So these guys on the outside are going to have to step up to show these defenses that they are willing to throw the ball and they can complete the ball downfield to open up that running lane for Buckley. My biggest worry about Western Michigan is on the defensive side of the ball. They gave up around 32 points a game last year, and they're returning 7 starters. So you're going to have new starters in there. The defense has to improve. If you're giving up that many points a game, you're going to lose some games in conference that you're favored in, and then you could see them not contending to play for the championship. That's my biggest worry with him this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to Hayden Wolf. I think they're going to be fine on the outside. I mean, you get your top receiver in Kenneth Womack back. He's a dynamic player. They get some transfers coming in to help kind of fill out that group. You got your running back. I think your O-line's going to be solid. You get first team All-MAC Jacob Gideon back to anchor that offensive line. So can Hayden Wolf be an efficient thrower of the football? He was fine in intermediate season ago. He lacked the accuracy in the deep ball, and that's what I think this offense is missing. And Tip, you hit it on the head. Their teams are going to pack the box. They're going to say, we want Hayden Wolf to beat us. So he's got to be the answer. He's got to be a quarterback that can play point guard and be accurate and get the ball to his receivers in space. So now they're forced to take that extra guy out of the box, which then opens it up for Jalen Buckley. So to me, that's the number one question mark. I think their defense will be okay. I don't see it being a top MAC defense, but I don't think it has to be, because if he can figure it out, then I think this offense is going to be unstoppable.
Is that who you had as a sleeper too, Jeff?
I did.
Damn.
I had another one as well.
Oh yeah, give us your other one.
I'm gonna stay in the Michigan area, Central Michigan. I think the Chippewas are due, man. You know, they got, again, a quarterback battle. You get Iowa transfer Joey Labas coming in. Bert Emanuel, to me, I think he's the X factor. He got injured last year. He's a dual threat guy. Doesn't throw it probably as well as Labas does. He's a big guy, 6'4". He's got a huge arm, more prototypical, staying in the pocket, and he can really drive the ball downfield. But I think if you can have the quarterback run game in this offense, I think it's going to be huge. And I think that's what Bert Emanuel gives you. And he's literally a player that can take it 90 yards at the snap of a finger. I think their running back room will be fine. Marion Luke and Miles Bailey will be the two guys kind of split in time. They'll fill out that room. But when you have that quarterback piece to it, then it really makes the life easier for those other running backs. And then I think their receiver group is packed with a lot of veterans, a lot of experience. And McElwain's a good coach. He's always had a good O-line. They're going to be big up front. They're going to be able to get a push. It's just, can they figure out the quarterback situation to me? If they can do that, if Burt can be the X factor, I think he can be, then they're a sleeper. They can come out of nowhere and beat anybody.
Well, I keep going back with Central Michigan to 2-3 years ago when Lou Nichols had a record-breaking season, and then the next year was just like nothing. But that's similar to what we talk about with Jalen Buckley, right? If you got one guy, defenses are just going to game plan for it. But yeah, I tell you, dude, I like Bert Emanuel, man. He's another one. I like. It's like these guys, it's there. The talent is there, and you just want to see them hit it, because if they do, that entire team is going to rally, and everybody else is going to look a whole lot better than they are because of that.
That's exactly it. And when you have a guy that is a running threat, and it seems like most of the guys that are so athletic they lack in the pass game. They're not super accurate. Their first instinct is to take off and run rather than let stuff develop. So if he can be an effective thrower, I don't need him to be, a Heisman candidate type of thrower. You just got to be efficient and effective. If you can do that, it's almost impossible to stop a guy like that, because if they can beat you within the pocket, then you try and bring pressure and they can escape the pocket and make plays with their feet and throw on the run. It's like, how do you stop a guy like that? Now you got a game plan for the quarterback run. It just opens up everything else. So I'm rooting for the kid. I think he's a dynamic player.
Yeah. Now, did y'all have anybody else in that sleeper category? What about, Alex was real high on Ohio. I'm not as high. I mean, is there anything? Did he say anything there that made you think, well, wait a minute, should I put Ohio up here in the sleeper category or in the contender category?
I mean, to me, this team might have been devastated by the portal more than anybody else. So, Tim Albin's done a great job there. It's his 4th year. I just don't know how you replace, that much of your production. And there's just so many question marks for me. I really don't know where to put this team. If they come out and they're a contender, it wouldn't shock me because of Tim Albin. But to me, the odds aren't on their side, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. Now, back to the state of Michigan. What about Eastern Michigan, Jeff? What about Max Crosby Field? What are the Eagles going to do? Now, I'll tell you this. I've always liked Cole Snyder. Yeah. I liked him at Buffalo. I think he's one of those guys that's – I remember last year talking about him being just under Finn and Gabbert and Rourke and those guys. What about Eastern Michigan?
I think they'll be somewhere in the middle. And I really do like Cole Snyder. I just don't know if he's got like a great supporting cast around him. So, a lot of question marks at the receiver position. You got transfers coming in, transfer from the JUCO ranks, Oren Singleton. Porter Rooks is a transfer from NC State. Then you got a tight end transferring from Florida, Jonathan Odom. So, you have a lot of pieces coming in. None of them really have like a great body of work underneath them. So it's hard to really tell when you're having this many pieces coming in. Now, Cole Snyder's got all the tools throwing the ball. He's going to be a great leader. Chris Creighton, he's been there 11 years now. And I like where this program's at and where it's headed. I'm just not sure this is the year for them.
And is the only team we haven't really talked about Buffalo at this point?
And Ball State.
And Ball State. Who did Alex have Ball State going and beating? Didn't he have them beating somebody?
Vanderbilt.
Vandy.
Oh, well, yeah, that's not that bold.
What about? I'd be Jack though if they did.
Oh, I absolutely would, because see, that's where, and not to get into this argument right now, but that's where these P4 fans and stands, as I call them, it's not like if Ball State is not your top of the MAC, and so they'll use those games. See, bottom of the barrel Vanderbilt beat Ball State, well, Ball State's been at the bottom of the MAC for a little bit, although they did win it a couple of years ago. But Ball State and Buffalo. I mean, Buffalo. I think they'll give Buffalo a year or two. Pete Lembo is going to have them in the right on the right track. They do, however, get Sean Dolak back, who's been there, I think, since we were in college. But he's like their all-time leading tackler. But I think he's one of those guys. He's not my underrated, but he's going to go underappreciated because he's going to play for a team that doesn't have a great record, I don't think, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think Buffalo. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tip.
I was just going to say they are returning a lot of starters on the defensive side of the ball. I think the biggest question mark and concern for Buffalo is on offense. So I'm in agreement with you, Sprouse. Like, give Buffalo a year or two, and they're going to be right back in contention.
And what I was going to say is I think Ball State and Buffalo are in kind of that similar category and boat where they have pieces, and I think it's not going to shock me if they have an upset or beat somebody even in their own conference. That's a big name. But I don't think that they're going to be competing for a conference title.
They did. Buffalo did just unveil their new weight room, which is pretty nice.
Got some sore
So
necks
that's
in there.
always it was. That's always it's very similar to Troy's weight room. They got that hill, that or a ramp or whatever you want to call it. Well, let's talk players for a second here. Let's talk player of the year. I'm gonna start with you, Jeff. Who you got? Give me your MAC player of the year.
I think it's going to be running back out of Western Michigan, Jalen Buckley.
Woo!
Over 1,000 yards last year, 10 touchdowns, 5.3 yards per carry. And with this new offensive coordinator, Walt Bell, he comes over from Indiana, played for our Blue Raiders, by the way. So I'm just high on this guy. But no, I think they have weapons on the outside, and if they can do a good job throwing the ball, I think it's going to just be even more room to run for Buckley. And watching film on him this weekend, the kid's got incredible vision and patience, and he's just got great instincts of hitting the hole and making guys miss. So Jalen Buckley, I think, is going to be my player of the year.
I like it. What about you, Tip?
If this guy stays healthy and this team wins the MAC championship, I'm going Brett Gabbert. You know, if they win the conference championship game, it's going to be mainly, because of him and his success on the field. And, when you have a team that is successful and that is good and wins the championship, you usually see the player of the year most of the time go to the quarterback position. But again, he stays healthy. Everyone around him stays healthy. I think Brett Gabbert is gonna win player of the year.
Yeah, typically you're looking at best player on the best team or quarterback on the best team. I kind of went in that direction, but I actually went defensive side of the ball, and I went back and forth with two guys. I wanted to go Ty Wise, but then I went with Matt Salopek. I think you're looking at 150 plus tackles out of him this year, and I just think that defense is going to be so good, it's almost going to override however good Gabbert does. What about underrated or underappreciated, Jeff?
I kind of mentioned it earlier in the show, but I think Miami's defense, like you said, is going to be the best they've had. And I think all the talk ends up coming down to Salopek and Wise, but I think Brian Ugwu doesn't get enough credit, and I think he's primed for a breakout year. If he can get pressure off the edge, I think he's a double-digit sack guy this year. And he's going to be a game wrecker for them. And I think he's going to be the difference on that defense. I think those guys in the middle will do a great job of stopping the run, but you're going to have to get after the quarterback if you want to win, and he's going to be the guy to do it.
Tip?
Well, you just mentioned this guy, but I'm going with Eastern Michigan quarterback Cole Snyder. He's thrown for over 2,000 yards in each of the last 2 seasons. He has that experience, right? And I just don't think you're hearing about him a lot because Eastern Michigan is, projected to be in the bottom half of the MAC this year. So, just bringing in that type of experience to a team that's returning a lot of starters, it could equate to instant success when you have a guy with that much experience. So I just think I know people in the MAC know about him, obviously, from his time in Buffalo. I just don't think he's been talked about a lot so far this season.
Well, I am staying on the defensive side of the ball for this one as well. And I know that Tip loves FCS transfers. I know that Jeff loves quarterbacks and anybody with any Blue Raider connection. I love single-digit interior defensive linemen. And I'm going up to Toledo, and I'm going Darius Alexander, defensive tackle, 6'4", 315. He wears number 9. Do yourselves a favor. If you're listening to this show, when you get somewhere safe, you're parked, you're at the house, just do a quick Google image search. Darius Alexander, eye test, A+, passing grade from me. But look for him. I mean, he's going to anchor that defense this year. They're not going to be quite as good in the secondary as they were a year ago, obviously losing Mitchell, but you put 6'4", 315 in the middle. And their other guy, I think, is a 300-pounder as well. Their other interior defensive lineman. So Toledo's going to be stout up front. Let's go most important conference game. I'll kick us off. Toledo at NIU, week 8, right in the middle of the year. I think that really the winner of that game puts themselves in the driver's seat to play in the championship. Jeff?
I'm going the following week. I'm going October 26th. That Toledo Bowling Green game is going to be, I think the winner of that game sets themselves up to possibly be in the MAC championship game. And I don't know. I think
I heard
Bowling Green's going to get it done, I think.
Wow. I heard there was going to be a dunk tank. I heard the AD was going to be putting himself in a dunk tank at that game. First time that game's been on a Saturday now in a long time.
I heard the host of a certain podcast is supposed to get his ass in that dunk tank.
Not the end of October, he ain't. not the end of October in Ohio, he ain't. I mean, I don't know who you. I think was Barstool going up there for that one. I guess.
I guess we'll see.
I don't know. Anyway, Tip, what about you? Most important conference game?
So I'm going with 2 games that are towards the end of the season. If you have these 2 teams in contention, these games become big. You got NIU at Miami of Ohio week 13. If NIU is in contention, that's a huge matchup that could, potentially shake things up at who's going to play for the championship. And then the last week of the season, Miami of Ohio again, they got to travel to Bowling Green. If Bowling Green is that team that's in contention and right there 1 win away from playing for a conference championship, this game's at home. That place is going to be rocking. And Miami of Ohio probably going to be obviously if they're going to be successful throughout the year, they'll probably be the road favorites in that game, but challenging game to if Bowling Green's in contention, that game could have huge implications.
Let's go in conference, or I'm sorry, let's go non-conference. I got one real early. Miami at Northwestern is the one I'm taking. Now, Miami's got 3 of them. I think they got to go 2-1 in those 3. The way I looked at it is I kind of figured they're going to beat Cincinnati. I kind of figured they may lose to Notre Dame. So going to Northwestern, I think they've got to win if they want if they want to have themselves in that conversation at the end of the year. They got to win that game. Jeff?
I'm going to go week 3, Central Michigan at Illinois, September 14th. I so badly want Burt to be the guy because if he is, you're talking the Chippewas could potentially be a 1-loss team after 6 weeks.
Who are they losing to? Who's they have that's tough?
I mean, other than Illinois, their toughest matchup is FIU. So
why are they going to lose? Wait, didn't you say they're going to be?
I think it's hard for them to go 6-0. Is my point. I think they'll probably drop 1, and I could see it. If you lose to FIU, but you come back and beat Illinois, I could see that happening because I'm a little bit higher on FIU than I initially was, but I think that's a big.
Oh no! Don't do that.
It's a big Power 5 matchup. They go in and they're going to play up for that game. I could see them beating Illinois. Burt can be the X factor. He can be that guy if he ends up winning the job. After that, they got Ball State, San Diego State at home, and Ohio at home. You get a 3-game home stretch after that, all very winnable games. Who knows? Central Michigan could be in the driver's seat.
Tip?
I picked a couple of non-conference group of 5 games because I think they're going to be super entertaining to watch. And we mentioned it earlier in this show, Toledo at Western Kentucky. That's going to be a big game. And that honestly could have implications on the college football playoffs and the committee if they're looking at not only head-to-head matchups but they're looking at common opponents or opponents that played other teams out of their conference. That's a huge game right there. I mean, Sprouse, you made the comment that you're looking at these 2 teams that are currently projected to finish 2nd or 3rd in their respective conferences. So that game alone right there could potentially have implications for not only those 2 teams, but if you're talking about Miami or Liberty having a chance for the college football playoff, that's a huge game. And then Western Michigan at Marshall. a lot of question marks with Marshall that that we'll discuss in the we'll talk about Marshall in the Sun Belt episode, but Western Michigan, if they're going to be contenders or a sleeper or wherever you have those guys going to Marshall and playing it, I always just like to see the the MAC versus Sun Belt games. I just think that's going to be a super entertaining game, and could and should be a very good game, good matchup.
Yeah, well, a lot of those, a lot of these with, again, like we were talking about with Alex, the MAC just gets disrespected, in my opinion. I think the MAC is, I'm not saying it's as good as the Sun Belt, but I think it's very similar in the type of programs that you have, traditional,
Regional
the
rivalries.
MAC's been the MAC for a long time.
Yeah.
Regional, I mean, the MAC's very, very regional. And so I think I like those matchups, and I like to see the MAC do well in some of those matchups. But all right, boys, it is time. Give me a matchup and give me a winner in Detroit, MAC championship game. Jeff Murphy. Wait, no. I feel like yours is going to be different. Tip, let me start with you.
So the matchup in the championship game, I'm going Miami versus NIU, and I kept going back and forth. I felt like Toledo would be the safe pick, but I just think with the amount of turnover that Toledo's had, they could struggle early, and that could cost them at a chance to play in the championship game. So I'm going Miami versus NIU. And since Alex picked Miami, I feel super confident in saying that Miami is going to be your MAC champion this year.
Wow, I did the exact same thing as Tip. I went back and forth, NIU, Toledo, NIU, Toledo, NIU, Toledo. That's why I went with that game week 8 as the most important conference game. I'm doing the exact same thing, Tip. I'm taking Miami over NIU.
Jeez, guys, can we have
Jeff?
an original take for crying out loud? Did you guys share notes?
No, this is raw.
Over the
No, this
weekend?
is raw. This is two
Is that over the
guys that
weekend?
just head down in the books, head down watching tape, coming up with the same answer.
Your head was somewhere. I'll tell you that.
Careful.
Well, let me get to my take, the most accurate take on this show. Championship game, MAC championship is going to be Western Michigan versus Miami of Ohio. I think that the way Western Michigan's schedule sets up, they avoid playing Miami. They avoid playing Toledo. I think Toledo's schedule is tough. I do. I think Tucker Gleason will be fine, but I don't think they make it. I think Western Michigan, with the way it sets up, really they don't play a tough conference matchup, in my opinion, until November the 6th, and that's when they play NIU. Then they follow with Bowling Green, Central Michigan, and Eastern Michigan. So I think Western Michigan gets in. They play Miami of Ohio, and your winner is the first repeat champion in a long time in the MAC. I think Miami of Ohio's defense is the key in that game.
4 for 4. Well, listen, if you are in Oxford, Ohio at the moment, our condolences, because now, unless we're saying that Alex is
I
the
think
X
we're
factor.
okay. Alex is the X
I
factor.
think he is too.
Wow, well then congratulations in Oxford. You guys got a champion on your hands.
Crown.
I like that pick, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm usually
Western Michigan. I mean, I got him
fairly-
as my sleeper, you know?
I just think the way their schedule sets up, man. I think as I've been going through a lot of these conference previews and looking at them, other than the Sun Belt, everybody now there's no divisions. So it's like whoever gets the favorable draw, literally has a leg up on everyone else. I mean, it's nuts, but it's good. I like it.
And it's like that in every conference. It's like that too.
Yeah.
There's a team that somehow avoids the top 2.
Mm-hmm.
And so what you're going to have is the top 2 beat each other. And then you're going to have that 3rd or 4th team or 5th team that doesn't play either one of them.
And they would normally be like a second
has
seed.
a favorable home. What's that?
They would normally be like a number 2 seed in that division, but since there's no divisions, they're going to get in. They're going to get in.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you've seen that too. You've seen where the 1 is 10-2, 11-1, and the 2 is 8-4.
Yeah.
And so that's what you're going to run into this year is a potential of an 8-4 team and you may have some 8-4, 9-3 champions coming around. But anything else you guys have on the MAC before we wrap this thing up? Remember, thank you, first of all, everybody, for listening and watching. You can check out our Conference USA preview from yesterday. Tomorrow, Wednesday, we are going to have the American, Thursday, Mountain West, and Friday, Sun Belt. And then, guys, Saturday, we're playing
Game
ball.
time.
Got some
Toes, meat, and leather.
big matchups.
Yeah.
Couple good ones, and we'll
Come
talk
on,
about
Nevada.
those a little bit
Come on, Wolfpack.
Friday as well. Oh, wouldn't you? Would you love anything more? We'll talk about that game a little bit when we do the Mountain West show, and then on Friday we'll probably make some picks. But that's all we got for you guys. Yes, sir.
I do have something that I want to mention. So,
do it.
for all of the sports betting fans out there, I have
Yeah.
a few numbers here that you might be interested in. Just want to throw these out there. So these odds are from DraftKings. So if you're someone that has multiple accounts through multiple, platforms and apps, make sure you do your shopping around. But I just got these off of DraftKings. So these teams' odds to win the MAC championship: Miami of Ohio at plus 250, Toledo plus 280, Western Michigan plus 650, NIU also at plus 650, Bowling Green plus 700, Ohio plus 1,000. And then I also have odds to make it to the championship game. You have Miami and Toledo at plus 100. NIU, and this might be I might be biased here because I picked NIU to play in the
value
championship
pick
game,
here.
but value pick NIU plus 260 to play in the championship game. You also have Bowling Green at those same odds at the plus 260. Western Michigan plus 275.
Take it.
And Alex would appreciate this one. He might be interested in this one. And anyone else that's high on Ohio plus 320 to play in the championship game.
I'm going to pick a winner of every conference. And I did it last year. Boy, was I wrong. But I'm going to put another ticket in. Because when you take all group of five conferences, as a parlay, if you can get them all right, boys, you're talking like plus 150,000.
Big odds. Yeah, huge.
And why not?
Have to get in on that. Well, that concludes our MAC preview show. We'll catch you every day the rest of the week, and then we'll catch you 3 times a week once the season gets cranked up. We need your help. We need you to follow us on all the social media platforms at Group of Five Guys. Go to YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your best podcast. Subscribe to the channel. Leave us a 5-star rating and a review. Most importantly, tell your family and friends all about us. That's all we got for y'all tonight. Out of here.